In this video, we're going to use the TestIM Playwright Automated Test Recorder to try some test recordings to see if we can compare to what we can type on our own. And then we're also going to use the UI Automation Test Playground to try out some new scenarios. So in the description, I'll have links to the TestIM Playwright Recorder, also this UI Testing Automation Playground, and I'll also be showing this XPath cheat sheet here, just in case you guys need it. Those links will be in the description down below. But the first thing I'm going to show here is that one of the things that Playwright has, or that TestIM has given us, is a recorder to allow you to kind of write your tests without having to know all the paths and everything, or even knowing the API of Playwright. So if I go here, grab this home page for this playground, and I just paste this in here, I can click start recording. It's going to pop that website up for me. And you can see here there's a red square there saying that we're actually recording. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm just going to click on dynamic ID. And right here it's saying that there's a scenario on this page that says basically record this test and then execute your test and make sure that the ID is not used because the ID on here is going to be dynamic, so it's going to change all the time. So I'm just going to hit F12 really quick, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. If I inspect this element, you can see the ID here is BE27. If I refresh this page, the ID is D4, so that the ID is going to do you no good. You can't select this element by the ID. So I'm just going to click this right here, and you can see that Playwright recorded these steps. Let me stop this recording really quick. But we kind of pulled in some other stuff we don't really need. There's the scroll to element. I'm not going to use that at all. I'm just going to delete that. Playwright doesn't need that. It already does that for us. It has a press F12 in here. Another thing we don't need is to press F12. So really now we have a test that it's going to click the dynamic ID and it's going to run the button. So if I just click play test here, it's going to go use TestIM to kind of run through this test that we just created. It's pretty slow compared to what we see with Playwright, but you do see that it gives us some other nice features where it shows us the elements it clicked on. It has green and red. It kind of has some nice things there. But if we go back to this Playwright tab, we can also click play test here. But it says really we need to have a couple things installed, the TestIM CLI, and then we need to connect it. So I'm just going to go over really quick and do that. So I already installed the tool, so I'm just going to run it. We now can connect. So I'm going to click play test here. And then compared to the other test we had before, that test also completed successfully, but it's much, much quicker. So just to show again, we spin up the test, it goes away, it completed successfully. If I do it on this screen, that gives us a little bit more debugging. It takes a whole lot longer, so this is a good screen for debugging, but for actually, running all your tests, it'd be terrible. So we have a test here, and this is pretty good code. It's not terrible. We have a browser, we have context, we have a page. So here we're gonna start a next test, and we're gonna go here and we're gonna look for visibility. We're gonna look for scroll bars here, where there's scrolling elements onto a screen may be tricky. Well, here you can see that there's nothing here to click on, but you're supposed to scroll on this box and then scroll and then click it and see if your test automation can handle it. So let me stop this here. I'm going to get rid of this scroll. I'm going to get rid of this drag. I'm going to get rid of this resize and get rid of this scroll as well. And then this is basically clicking on the hidden button. If I come back over to Playwright and I click play test, we got a successful test. But again, we've got this weird element that I don't really like. So coming over into Playwright Sharp, basically this is the setup that I used last time in our tests. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it up above. But this is my structure for doing the same thing that they're doing. So if we look at this really quick, they're creating a browser context and a page. They're going to that page, and then they're clicking on a link, and then they're looking for the hidden button, and then basically Playwright's doing all the rest. I don't have to do any waits or looking or scroll tos. That's all getting handled for me behind the scenes, and then the browser gets closed. So if we look at the C# code, we have a page URL defined. We have in our constructor, we create a browser if we need one. This is the code right here that installs Playwright. It creates a Playwright object, and then it launches Chromium in a headless mode right now. And then on our dispose method for XUnit, we'll close the page, so we don't have to deal with any of that stuff in our actual test. And we get all of that functionality for free without copying and pasting that same code over and over. So we're going to just open a new context in our test. We're going to navigate to the URL. Then we're going to click on a link of scroll bars, because that was actually what the page that we're looking for is. And that's a better locator than what we were given here as well. So, I mean, nobody's really going to know what the nth child 3 and nth child 1 A is. That's garbage, especially if you're looking at the test later. So we're looking for the link that has text with scroll bars, and then we're going to click on the hidden button, and that's all the test is. So if I just go over here really quick, I can prove it still works by clicking the hidden button and just click and run. Should take 2 seconds or so, and that should be just done. So that's our first example. The click recorder did an okay job. Besides for this, the code's almost identical. So let's go back over here. Let's delete these 2 steps, and let's try another recording here. So instead of that, let's try something that's a little harder, and we're going to try progress bar here. So the scenario here says that we're going to click the start button, let this load up to 75%, and then click stop. So if you do it here, let this go up to 75%. So I missed the timing. I got it at 76, but basically it says my result is 1 off from where it should be, and I was, I think, a full second off of actually clicking in time. So I didn't do very good, but luckily I'm not an automated test or a computer. If I stop this here, you can see we have the scroll to element we don't need again. We have the resize we don't need. And then we have a click start and then a click stop. Well, that's okay, but we're missing a step. And we're going to do a validation here. Sorry, let's do a wait. Let's wait for the element text here. And let me click on this. And we want the expected value to actually be 75, not 76. And then let me close this really quick. So if you look at the test, we're going to click the progress bar. We're going to click start. We're going to wait for the text to be 75, and then we're going to stop. Let's just double check the test to make sure this looks right. So if I run it here, I've seen some funky results with this. This TestIM doesn't seem to be able to handle this test most of the time. Maybe 1 out of 10 times it successfully stops at that 75, but I don't think it checks it every second or every time it should. Like they just skipped by it and didn't stop. You know, we'll just stop this here. So, oops, sorry. Got click happy. So let me stop that. So we have our test here. Let's try it again, but let's try it in Playwright, see if it can handle this wait for text. And you can see what they did here was they created this function for wait for text. So if we let that go, you can see it pulls up, it clicks start. We'll see if it catches it here when the 75 hits. And completed successfully. So Playwright was able to handle it while this TestIM wasn't. But let's flip over to the C# code I have. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our page again. We're going to go to progress bar. We're going to click the start button. All looks the same. But here we're just going to do get inner text async. and say we want the progress bar, but we want the area value now to equal 75. So that way we don't have that extra function they have. We actually have no need for that. And this is just going to keep querying that item until the value matches 75. Then we're going to click the stop button, and then I'm even going to get the outcome here so we can see what it looks like. So if I just right click here, I'm not going to view it. I don't really care to view it. But let me just right click and debug here after I put a breakpoint so that you can see that this test is actually working without having to do that inner loop they were doing of a wait in JavaScript. And I'm not sure how this test works, if it's a random time assigned, but sometimes it moves faster than others. So sorry, I did the wrong one. Let me do the right test this time. You guys were probably screaming at your screen like you did the wrong one, but that's okay. So the progress bar takes a random amount of time. I haven't really found out how that works. It seems to go longer when you're watching it, but let me step through. So if we look at the text here, we ended up 1 second past, it looks like, with a duration of 466. See if we can run it one more time. Or maybe we'll run it when it's visible so we can double check what it's doing. So let's debug this again, and that way when it hits this outcome, we'll be able to see where it stopped at. And this is just a test to see how good your framework is at catching those events. All right, we're getting close, and it stopped. And you can see here, this time we actually got it on 0. So we can see the test worked the way we wanted it to. So I'm just gonna continue on here. So our progress test is working. It works just as well as this one does, but we don't have this extra funky utility JS that we have to do. We just get that bonus in Playwright Sharp. So I'm going to go over here, delete these, and we're going to try our last test of the day. But this last test, I'm going to spoiler here, it's not going to work in this test recording, and we'll get to why in a second. But if you guys are getting value, please hit the like button, subscribe, and so let's record this next one. So here we're going to do dynamic table. In this scenario, it's really funky because this table is being generated. That's just an old school HTML table. But you can see that the columns here are memory, disk, network. And if you refresh it, they're randomly going to get assigned. Let me see. So now it's network, disk, CPU, memory, disk, network. So you're looking for this value of CPU in Chrome. So right here, it's right there. So that value of 0%. If I refresh it again, it's now 5.4, but it's now up here. So I don't know how you're supposed to do that with this framework. If someone knows, comment down below and tell me, because I have no idea. So if you go to this dynamic table and do an add, we can you can do a validation. So we can validate the text element of like this. But even then, you have a random value, and you're trying to match it to something in this table. So even that's not right. So I really don't know how you would do that. And then when you come over here and look at the selector, it's kind of weird. You've got this wait for text, you got a BG warning. None of that really makes any sense to me. So I'm really not sure how you'd make this work here, but I was determined, so I made it work in Playwright Sharp. So we're going to click on the link that says dynamic table, but then we're gonna start doing something a little funky here. So this is an XPath. Let me pull up a cheat sheet here just so you guys know, if you've never seen XPath before, what this actually is. So in the XPath cheat sheet, it'll be in the links below. But you can see basically the / is to look anywhere in the DOM on your page. So you can chain these together to look down the next items. You can look for sibling elements. You can look for parents here by doing this double thing. It's a relative path. So these are basically all the ones that are normal, or I guess proper. But we're going to look for a span that has the text of CPU, and then I'm going to grab its parent. We'll debug this in a second so you can see what that does. But basically it's going to give me all the column headers. And then I wrote a function here, and I would hate to do this in JavaScript, honestly, but some of you might prefer it. And this is really the benefit of using Playwright Sharp, is the debugging is so much better than trying to debug Node, as far as I'm concerned. So this is firing off. It found this columns section, and since we did get inner HTML async, we found the header or the span that has CPU, but then we're grabbing the HTML of the parent element, which will then give us, let me open it up so it's a little bit bigger. Hopefully you guys can see that. But it's basically giving us these spans with column headers. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to split on this character right here, the ending of the XML node, and or the HTML node here in this case. But I'm just going to split on that. And basically, I'm just going to cheat and say I'm looking for CPU. So I'm looking for something that starts with CPU after this split. So there's probably a better way to do it. If you guys know how to do it with Lethcode, comment down below because I'd love to see it. Because this is how I did it. And basically I was like, I always know the first column is going to be name. So I said skip to the third because that's the first time you can do it. Basically, if it starts with CPU, we're going to use it. Here it's going to step through a couple times. But then it's going to return to us. So explaining this math. So the first column here is technically the third element in our array, but we only have like 5 columns, but you're going to have 10 plus elements in here. So I'm subtracting 1 to figure out which of these elements here this is, because there's only going to be these 4. So I divide it by 2 to get down to which column I am. And then since we're ignoring this name column here, we actually have to add 1 at the end. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, work it out on your own and see kind of how it works. But that's why there's this funky math here, and that's why I hid it in this get column number, so that basically it abstracts all that complication from anyone reading the test in the future. And if anyone wants to see how I would clean this up if I was actually doing this for real, let me know in the comments. So we're gonna get the column number. We're then gonna look for a span that says Chrome, go up to the parent, and then find that CPU column because it's randomly going to be generated somewhere. And we're going to go locate that span off the parent of the Chrome row. If you guys know a better way to locate it than that, let me know that too, because I would love to know a better way to find these dynamic tables. But then let's flip back over here really quick. Basically, this class is BG warning, and that's how I'm going to grab this element. And so we're basically going to say whatever this Chrome text is on this element, we want to compare that to this whole BG warning class, and then we're going to say that they're equal. So I'm just going to run this really quick. The test doesn't take that long. And it succeeded. So I'm going to go up here really quick and just rerun all these tests in headless mode, just proving that they all still work. There's nothing funky going on here. I will say that I'm returning -1 here, just in case this didn't catch anything that starts with CPU. That way I would know kind of what's going on if I see a -1. But all these tests work really well. I like it better than the click recorder, but if you're getting started and you've never done anything before, I think this TestIM has a good tool for starting. You can start learning the API. I wouldn't use a lot of this auto-generated code. That's usually why I don't like click recorders like this or UFT or any of those tools. I hope you liked the video. If you want to see me do more on Playwright or Playwright Sharp, please let me know.